Hello, everybody. Today, I'm going to talk about my favorite subject, which is astrology, and mostly Centaur Astrology. And the reason is I will be teaching a course on it and working with a lot of group events and stuff to work with the centaurs. If you think of think of astrology kind of as a restaurant. And the signs are, the table you sit at. The houses are the place setting. The food is the planets. And the asteroids in astrology are the seasonings. They're what make your signature dish, your signature you. So some people argue they're not as strong in the chart, but they are, because take Hitler, for example. Everybody blames his issues in life on his Saturn and Mars square opposition. But that's not the case, because we'd have 5 million, billion possibly, Hitlers around if that's what we went on. But when we look at the combination of the Plutinos in the chart and the centaurs, we can see patterns and work with them. So enough about Hitler. But so centaurs in astrology, they kind of deal with our blind spots. Think of like our wound, the part within ourselves we can't heal, ourselves, but therefore, we're pretty good at dealing with it, so we can help others. That's Chiron's realm. This also deals with the fringes of society, excesses, the dark aspects, the bullying, the being able to prophesy, impending doom. All those dark parts of life that take us out of our default safe zone, which would be lovely to be there, but let's face it, that's not how anything works. There's always a yin and a yang, and a positive and a negative. And I believe that it's very important to look into our darker psychology, our traumas, whether they be ancestral, our own, or perceived traumas. They're all important in our psychology and how we evolve and heal in this lifetime. So that's where the centaurs kind of come in. They're basically, a good way to sum it up, they're unconscious conflicts of our soul. So that, my friends, is what we're going to work with. So every astrologer knows that it never ends. The cycle of transits, of Mercury retrogrades, of moon avoids, of on and on and on. But there's so many wonderful things that happen too. And that's how centaurs work. When we go through these trials, these tribulations, and we're able to get to the other side, basically rise like the phoenix, we develop a magical skill. We reinvent ourselves, and these are the potential life changers. They're not just a way of incredible success and knowing in this lifetime, but it's also a way to heal ancestral trauma and generations of trauma, programmed trauma from the environment. Like, we can change the world literally with this knowledge. So that's my goal in working with these. So centaurs in astrology, they're the troublemakers. They induce chaos. Think of they're masters of creating these huge inner conflicts between you and the world, between you and yourself, between so many different aspects. And centaurs are difficult to handle. They're difficult to maneuver around. They're not they're not just like, oh, here's the diagnosis, I just need to do this. Centaur processes very rarely in a lifetime can actually be fixed. However, when we place awareness in any area, just that awareness can help us make different decisions and start to heal, evolve, possibly completely cure. So I never like to say never. But these are the hard parts. And yet to me, they're also the fun parts when we can identify those places in our life where we do have, these traumas, these conflicts, this chaos. It helps us look at it in a term that's not high anxiety, but more just, okay, now I know this is here, I can deal with it. So once we pass through the intrinsically chaotic, disturbing element of the centaurs, we find their hidden treasures. And that's the bliss right there, folks. So that's what I'm gonna go through. So the hidden treasures, I'll tell you about the 7 centaurs that we'll be working with, and then information on how that's gonna look for you. So the first centaur is the most famous, and almost everybody has heard in the astrology world of Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer. He was the centaur that could heal everybody around him, but not himself. So Chiron shows our wounds. In the house and in the sign, it shows where we're going to just always have that wound. But because of it, we're going to be able to heal those around us, even though we suffer with that ourselves. So Chiron is a great one to look up. And there are so many countless books on him. I am just the tip of the iceberg giving you an introduction to him. He's massive when it comes to healing. The next is Asbolus. Asbolus is the centaur that could read the birds in flight and see what was coming, and it gives us impending doom, I guess you could see. Asbolus brings us the ability to see the writing on the wall, even though no one else can see it. And because of that, it can push us into a sense of isolation or doom and gloom, thinking, this is it. What am I living for? Like, the world's a horrible place. But there's gifts in those prophecies and that seer ability of Asbolus. So being able to to see clearly through that is a huge gift. So we're going to work with Asbolus. We're going to work with Pholus in the chart. So Pholus is an interesting one. We call this one the butterfly effect, or the Pandora box. Basically, it's a chain reaction of your life events that lead to some kind of catastrophe, and picking the pieces back. Think of kind of like putting back together Humpty Dumpty. All these tiny little cracks throughout your life have been working, and then boom, it explodes, and chaos ensues, and something can manifest. So when we look at Pholus in the natal chart, what we can do is pinpoint where that might happen, or how to help pick it back up together if that is how it happened, because that's important to know. Sometimes if you don't know the butterfly effect, a butterfly can flutter its wings on one side of the world, but that energy, as it creates and goes and shifts, it can actually cause a gigantic tsunami on the other side of the world. So the energy of Pholus works like that in our charts. The fourth asteroid is Nessus. This is a deep one because this is the cycle of abuse in your life, and it can be in your life right now, and it can be either you receiving the abuse or giving the abuse. It's a hard one for a lot of people to hear, but this also goes much deeper. This is your ancestral abuse, ancestral healing, and it can stem generations and generations. So I like to look at Nessus in this life, but also in past life, because our abuses are handed down to some degree, and they can have a pendulum effect if you have been the victim in more than one lifetime of going back to the other side and being the perpetrator. So it's an interesting one to look at, whether you believe in past lives or not, but Nessus is deep, the cycles of abuse. The next is Thereus. Thereus is that crazy centaur that used to love to pull bears out of his den. It's where Thereus is in your chart shows your absolute power, power to corrupt, and discernment. Think of the machoism student trying to overly please a master to almost being at a dangerous level. The intention shifts. The power goes out of hand. Interestingly enough, we're seeing Thereus right now in our world right now. We're watching power corrupting many, many different governments and organizations. So working with Thereus in your chart can show where that may be happening, where it's likely to happen, and things to look out for. Because that's a big one. Okyrhoe is a female centaur that I love. She was this one that was she was able to prophesy, but she did so in such a way that it angered the gods, so they turned her into a mare. So she's a beautiful centaur because she shows us, again, the ability to prophesy, similar to Asbolus, but this is different. This is your principled truth. When you can see the truth and you're sharing it to the world, regardless of the ridicule, the abuse, the bullying, and all the stuff that's going to conjure up around you. So think of the conspiracy theorists or people who have fought for a cause that they were one of the only people fighting for, and the whole rest of the people shift against them and start labeling them and bullying them or think of someone who has been jailed even though they're innocent. So those kind of things, they're the principle. With Okyrhoe, she's the one that says what she can clearly see and what she believes in, no matter what situations are around her. So some of us have her strong in our chart, and some of us have her aspected in our chart, which both are things we need to work through. And the last one we're going to go through is Pylenor. Pylenor is the 7th centaur in my course. And think of the worst part of kind of the scorpionic alter ego. When the centaurs had their big, when they were all fighting for Pholus's wine, the magical wine that Hydra had given him, and Hercules had to start killing them. He had these poison arrows, and they all suffered somewhat from these arrows. Pylenor, he got shot, but he ran to this river to try cleanse his wound and cleanse the poison out of it. Doing so, he basically tarnished the whole river. It became unclean and dirty. And so when we think of Pylenor in the chart, when Pylenor is activated, there's a transference. One has to deal with something that's related to you, like it's personal, even though it's not. Trying to save your life, and in doing so, something bad happening. Actually, this would probably be a better example of an innocent person being jailed, like think Shawshank Redemption kind of energy, or facing a collective problem. The beauty of Pylenor is that once this problem is solved, this is a new identity. This is the Phoenix rising aspect of this centaur. So we're going to look at these all in your chart, and through little lessons on YouTube. So this will be the introduction one. Thank you for joining me today and spending 14 minutes of your time. My Centaur course will be coming up very soon, but until then, I plan on doing daily, like 5-minute little blurbs with the centaurs. So hope to see you soon, and much love.